Salutations, it's me, Salty. Welcome back to Two Cents Toys, and tonight I'm joined by my good friend, Ryan, aka Laserpants81 from the Infinity Equation podcast. How are you doing tonight, Ryan?
I am doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Thank you for being the first slash guinea pig on this new thing that we're doing tonight. Kind of I guess, quick overview of what's happening. I did a video almost a year ago at this point called The Way I Played, and it was talking about Dragon Ball Z figures and how I played with them, how playtime was kind of configured around that.
Mhm.
And I'd intended on making that a video series, doing G.I. Joe, doing things like that. And I was like, you know what? No one wants to hear me talk about my memories. What I wanted to do was to bring my friends on and hear about how they played when they were kids, and just, because everyone plays a little bit different. Some people didn't mix toy lines, some people only played outside, some people just, everyone's a little bit different. And I just think it's always fun because you kind of pick your friends as a kid based on, do you play well together, kind of. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I just think it's a fun concept. So before we dive into anything, tell the fine people at home who you are, where they can find you, kind of a little summary of what you're doing right now.
Sure. Yeah. My name is Ryan. I go by Laserpants or Laserpants81 online. Born and raised in Seattle, Washington. I've been collecting, my whole life since the mid 80s. I'm a co-host on a podcast every Friday night at 5:00 right here on YouTube, 5:00 Pacific. It's called The Infinity Equation, and we talk about our adventures in collecting, I guess you could say. We're mostly just modern collectors, although Bobby does have an extensive collection of vintage stuff. And I dabble in toy photography, and I post that stuff on Instagram very irregularly because my time is very constrained due to work and family obligations. So that, the hobby comes after all that stuff. And yeah, that's about it.
Right on, right on. So born and raised in Seattle. So just quickly, as someone who's never been to the Pacific Northwest, I hear it rains or, quote, mists a lot. Did that hinder kind of outdoor play? Were you mostly an indoor kid, or?
No, not at all. It does rain a lot in Seattle, but I'd say most of the rain is, the reputation is because it drizzles often. The torrential downpours are a few times a year maybe, but being that it was kind of like through 7-8 months out of the year, it's kind of like, it's kind of wet and damp and cloudy. You kind of get used to it, and that didn't affect me playing outside. I'd ride my bike out in the rain. I'd put on a rain jacket and ride down to the local Kmart or Target to look for toys when I was a kid. So yeah, I played indoors, outdoors. I'd take my toys in the dirt, or it reminds me of one of Retro Blasting's videos where one of the play sets he showed was just an old carpet. And
Right.
He would kind of bunch it up and throw it on the floor, and it could be whatever he wanted, trenches for his soldiers or racetrack for his Hot Wheels. And that's exactly what I had. So, yeah, the rain never stopped me from playing outside. That's for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, that's it's something I've noticed. Just in terms of playing outside, inside, some toys lended themselves to being played with outside. For example,
Sure.
Like, I don't know, maybe the APC from G.I. Joe or He-Man, which is a little more sturdy, but things like Transformers or anything with small, easily lost parts you didn't really take out there. Was there anything in particular that did you kind of separate those, or was it, I'm going outside to play, this is coming with me kind of thing?
Yeah, there was no separation. My parents, the front of their house, they had what they called an atrium. Now that sounds really bougie, but I guarantee it. I assure you, it wasn't. It was all the glass was gone, and it was pretty much just like a planter rockery, like as a front porch almost. And the rockery went up to about, I don't know, maybe 3 feet, and it was full of dirt. And my mom would plant flowers out in there. But that was my favorite place to take G.I. Joe's, Star Wars toys, put them out in the dirt, play with them. I'd dig pits in it and add water and put my toys in the mud. So there was no differential for me, but I would always bring my toys in after and I'd clean them off in the sink. So I wasn't super rough with them.
Mm-hmm.
I got them dirty, but I always made sure to clean them up.
I got you. So you weren't exactly Sid. You would take them out rough and tumble, but at least you maintained them. You took care of them.
Yeah, I never lit them on fire or blew them up with fireworks. I was never that type of kid.
Right on. So that's good to hear, because you always know that one neighborhood kid you go to play at their house or what have you, at school, something, and you're like, okay, I'll bring these guys, he'll bring his guys, and you show up and his are covered with paint scuffs and broken fingers and all that, and yours are almost packaged fresh.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man, that reminds me of a neighborhood kid when I was growing up. He was the kid that had everything. I mean, he had like every He-Man figure, every Ninja Turtle, the play sets, the vehicles. And I remember his dad had this little mini cannon, but it was functional. It was technically a firearm.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I remember him setting up his He-Man figures in his backyard against some rocks and firing that damn cannon at him. It just, the bits of plastic everywhere, So that was the Sid of my neighborhood.
I got you. The kid whose family had money to replace anything that he broke.
Exactly. Yeah. My in the 80s and early 90s, we were really poor. So what I had, I took care of, and I appreciated it because we didn't have a lot.
Mm-hmm. Now, there's a comment here from Timothy Ward, which actually it jogged a memory of mine. I'll put it up here on screen. He asks, did you freeze your Han Solo? Which I know I did. I went through this kick as a kid. I don't know where the idea came from, but for probably a full summer, I would wake up in the morning, I would fill up a plastic cup of water, I'd dunk a G.I. Joe in it, and I'd stick it in the freezer and wait for it to freeze. Then I would just take them and thaw them out.
Dude, I still remember the orange piece of Tupperware that I would freeze my Han Solo in. And not just Han Solo, but I would freeze Superman, superpowers, any figure. I'd put it in that orange Tupperware, fill it with water, stick it in the freezer. And I kind of got smart to it, though, because then it was frozen. You have to wait for it to thaw to play with it again, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I started keeping the bubbles that the figures came in. Like the cards would get thrown out,
mm-hmm.
but I keep the bubbles that they came in, and that would be like where they were frozen. That would be like the freezing chamber, the carbonite block, or whatever,
So you were the smart kid amongst us, because
yeah. Well, I got tired of freezing a toy, and then I'd be playing and the storyline would play out, and then I'm like, okay, I want to get this thing out, and I remember a few times maybe like trying to hit it with a hammer or something, something hard to break the ice, but I mean, that didn't totally remove it all the time, so you'd have to sit there and wait for it to melt. And so
oh yeah, there was a couple of my G.I. Joe is my favorite one to do. I think it's this Hollywood trope of the the hero frozen in ice kind of thing.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I mean, Han Solo, Captain America.
Yep.
Was
Sergeant Savage was that the G.I. Joe line from the mid 90s, something like that.
It might have been. That was after. I mean, mid 90s was about the time that I started collecting as a collector. I would keep some stuff in package and display it on a shelf. But
that was going to be my follow-up question. If there was ever kind of a break or a time where you just kind of stopped collecting toys and got back into it, or if it was a continuous stream from birth to now.
So in adulthood, there was definitely 2 breaks in collecting that I took. Mm-hmm. But going from kid to adult collector, I was 14 in 1995.
Okay.
And that was when the Power of the Force 2 came out.
Right.
So I was I was pretty much out of toys. I still had them all, and I'd bring them out every now and then, but I wasn't really playing with them like I was when I was, younger. Mm-hmm. But when that line hit, it was like a dream come true, because I'm this generation born in 81. So by the time I was going to Kmart's, Targets, Walmart's, whatever, the Kenner stuff had dried up. It was gone.
Oh yeah.
So all of my Kenner toys came from swap meets and from a cousin of mine who actually gave me a pretty sizable collection of his that, I think I paid him $50, which was a ton of money in like 88, 80. Well, it would have been 89 or 90 probably. But that took a lot of mowing lawns and stuff like that to earn money, or sometimes my older sisters would give me a couple bucks if I did the dishes on their night to do the dishes, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So being that the Kenner line had dried up by the point in time where I could, and this is the 80s, so keep in mind, it was totally acceptable to let your 8 or 9-year-old kid walk to the store,
Mm-hmm.
And there was a Target and what they called Pay and Save in the Pacific Northwest here, which was kind of like a Rite Aid. It was about 4 blocks from my house.
Oh, wow.
So when that Power of the Force 2 line hit in 95, it was like, wow, actual Star Wars figures on the pegs again, and they're not Bendums. This is awesome. And so even though that was right at the time when I kind of stopped playing with toys as a kid, it immediately picked up with me collecting toys as a collector. And I distinctly remember buying 2 of my favorite characters, one to open, one to keep on card.
Mm-hmm.
And I would be out hunting for the Boba Fett with the half circle on his hand instead of the full circle. And I was looking for the long lightsabers and the short sabers.
Right. Short saber, long tray, all those variations.
Exactly. Yeah. And then, after that, I'd say around the time episode 1 came out, I was about 17 or 18, and I had realized, well, Star Wars is back, and there's going to be 3 more movies. Where am I going to put all this stuff? It's not going to stop.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided that I was going to be a grown-up and stop buying toys. Well, that lasted for about a year, maybe 2 years. And then I saw the first super articulated Toy Biz Marvel figure, which was the Spider-Man Classics Wave 1.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I saw that, and it was everything I wanted when I bought the Toy Biz Spider-Man with the suction cups on his hands.
Oh, yeah.
It was everything I wanted. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to get like Spider-Man here. That's all. And then that turned into me. I was really into Austin Powers, and that was right at the time that McFarlane was making Austin Powers. So I picked up a couple of those, and pretty soon I'm like all back in it.
Yep, that's it. It takes that one push and then just boom, back down.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Back down the rabbit hole. So yeah, let's see. What other questions do we have tonight? So we have kind of a brief overview of up till now. What would you say? Because every kid, ends up with toys that they don't really care about, or you go through like a 3-month phase where like, man, I really like Skeleton Warriors or whatever. Mm-hmm. What would you say overarching are kind of the biggest toy lines that were mainstays from childhood? Like you got into He-Man really young and you continued playing with He-Man, or just kind of the big. Let's go with the big 5 that you played with the most.
As a kid, it was definitely Kenner Star Wars was number 1, because Star Wars has always been, my favorite. I guess you could say IP. Mm-hmm. My entire life, up until about 2017. And so, yeah, it was definitely Kenner Star Wars stuff. After that, it would be Kenner Superpowers. I love the DC figures. I grew up in the time of the Super Friends cartoon, and there had already been at least a decade of shows to watch from that, that were continually in reruns over the years. So, mm-hmm. And then that turned into the Toy Biz superheroes, and the Dark Knight collection from Kenner.
Yep.
And around that same time was the Toy Biz Marvel figures. So that was a big one with me. And beyond that, as a kid, I always, there was always toy lines that I wanted, mm-hmm. but I never really had much of, because either they were expensive or, like Mask is a perfect example.
Right.
Yeah. I had one Mask toy as a kid. It was the red motorcycle. I believe it was a bad guy. What was their villains were called Venom, right?
I think so. Yeah, mask is a very weak area for me.
Yeah, yeah. So I had one, but I had a friend who had them all, and that was
Oh,
like a big one that I coveted. And then the fifth one, I guess, GI Joe. Even though I didn't have a lot of those as a kid, and I don't think I had any vehicles, but I did have. I probably had 20 to 25 GI Joe figures,
mhm.
and I love those because there was no other figure in the 3 3/4 scale at the time, at least that I had or that I can remember, that had the amount of articulation they did.
Right. Yeah.
And so the fact that they had knees and they had the ball joints at the hips and bicep swivels and elbows, and I loved it. I mean,
Oh,
I would use those in my Kenner Star Wars vehicles more often than I would use my Kenner Star Wars figures because they were only 5 POA, and
right.
I
You
wanted to
wanna,
pose my yeah.
yeah.
I want
Whatever you see on screen, you want your figure to do. Kind of thing.
exactly
Yeah.
exactly yeah.
I was very much the same way. I had Star Wars figures, but Luke couldn't hold his lightsaber with two hands, which today is still a point of contention. I'm like, why is he holding a baseball bat? Just give him
Right,
butterfly joints. It's not that hard.
right, yep,
But
absolutely.
so we're getting a lot of questions coming into the chat here.
Okay.
I'll kind of combine a few of them. So, well, one of the topics we were going to talk about, let me see if I have my banner for it, which I do not. That's fine. So, combining toy lines. I've met some people. Tony over at Analog Toys is one of them where Motu was with Motu, G.I. Joe was with G.I. Joe. That was it. And you've mentioned already that you used your Kenner Star Wars vehicles with G.I. Joe. Was there any other kind of mixing that you did? Like, did the IP worlds clash in any way, or was it just kind of a kind of havoc free for all? Like you just made up your own stories with these characters, independent of their own stories from TV and movies.
Yeah, when I was really young, it didn't matter. I had my favorite toys, and they all played together. I mean, I had it was like a 12-inch cowboy with a horse that was my dad's when he was a kid,
Mm-hmm.
and he'd be out there with my superpowers figures who were they were about 4.5 5 inches, and my Star Wars figures were in with them. So yeah, I mixed them all up and played together. It was later on, probably 90s that I kept them separate, and I had separate bins for them in my room, and I would pull out my Batman toys, for example, and I'd play Batman, or I'd pull out my GI Joe figures and I'd play GI Joe. And I had a couple of Tonka trucks, like pickup trucks that would work with GI Joe. So those were my GI Joe vehicles. But yeah, early on, young childhood, I didn't care. And then later on, I noticed, well, this Flash Gordon from the Defenders of the Earth, that doesn't make sense with this GI Joe. That's way too big. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was losing a bit of my imagination at that point. Yeah, then I started to split them up.
Yeah. No, it's you become aware of scale very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's like you'd have like here next to me, I've got a couple of Batman, and even all the Batmen aren't the same size. But some of them you could fudge them together, Batman and Marvel a little bit. But something like GI Joe and a Kenner Terminator, the size discrepancy is too large. And I think after a certain point, like as a kid, your imagination takes hold and you don't care, but you start to maybe lose a little bit of that, and you try to ground everything in reality a little bit. So
Yeah, yeah. In fact, even when it was still Kenner in '95, or maybe it was Hasbro at that point.
Hasbro had bought Kenner, but they were still under the Kenner banner.
That's right. I remember being really disappointed. There were still only 5 POA for the most
Mm-hmm.
part, and then it was later on, probably around '97, '98, they started adding in knees on certain figures or elbows or whatnot. But yeah, I mean, I totally lost my train of thought.
Oh, it's all good. We got even more questions. Let's see.
Okay.
So from Jeff Morris, we're going to talk about this later, but I'll just bring it up now. Says, good evening, everyone. Any toys that you wish you'd never gotten rid of? He wishes that he'd kept all of his GI Joes. They are expensive to rebuy them now, and he's not lying. In the last year, it's become redonkulous. So, is there anything that you had as a kid that, whether it was sold, destroyed, you quote lent it to a friend who just never brought it back? Is there anything that you no longer own that you wish that you'd kept, whether it be monetary memories or just what are your, that's my favorite toy. I'll lend it to you. Then, like for me, for example, I had a friend at school. We were really close friends. I lent him one of my figures, and then he moved over the summer, and I never saw it again.
Yeah. So not a lot made it into my adulthood except for my Star Wars toys. It was about it was maybe 7 or 8 years ago. See, my kid is 11 years old now. So my mom said, "Hey, I was up in the attic and I pulled out this, a couple old boxes of toys." And it was my action figures. I had, a few Hot Wheels and things. And so I started going through them. And I started going through them with my kid, and I let him pick out what he wanted. And I think stupidly, the rest I might have just given away or taken to the thrift store or something. Some of them I did sell off, but what I have left is the Kenner power loader from the Alien line.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, with a pwn, and it still has the firing missile.
Oh man.
And I think Apone still has his weapon.
Nice.
A Swamp Thing figure, and I don't remember the name of it, but he looks like Native American.
Okay. Yep.
And the T800 from the Kenner line, the one where the front pops off and you can. No, his front doesn't pop off. You can swap out his arm.
Yeah, his arm. You mean, let me turn on my lights here, because you're talking about, I wasn't going to show my camera, but you're talking about a lot of stuff here that I actually happen to have in front of me.
Okay.
So you're talking about this guy.
Yeah, but, okay, mine didn't have the camo pants or the tattoo. I think he has, like, the pink shirt. It's the one NECA based there.
Yeah. I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah, it's the one NECA based there. So my kid kind of took what he wanted, and he still has them to this day. They're in his room. And then I kept all my Star Wars stuff, including Power of the Force 2. But around 2015, prices started going up, and they were all just in a closet. They weren't displayed or anything. And I wanted to take my kid was 5. I wanted to take him to Disneyland. So I ended up selling off almost all of my Star Wars stuff, definitely all my vintage. And that completely paid for a week in Disneyland with it's just me, my wife, and one kid. So it paid for a week in Disneyland, which is not cheap.
No, it's not.
I did well, but if I would have hung on to that stuff until now, I could have taken them to Disney World for like a month with the way the prices have gone since then.
Absolutely.
And so in that way, I don't regret selling that stuff as an adult, but some of the stuff I didn't hang on to as a kid that my mom didn't have, I do kind of regret that. I wish I still had some of my superpowers stuff and my Toy Biz Batman figures and Kenner the Dark Knight collection. Those I loved DC when I was a kid. I still do, and the superpowers and the Toy Biz line of DC superheroes and the '89 Batman. Man, I love that stuff, and that's probably my biggest regret is not hanging on to all that stuff, because I had a lot of Batman and DC stuff.
I got you. Yeah, that's tracking, because you had the superpowers followed by '89 Batman, followed closely on the heels of the animated series. So I'd say Batman pretty much dominated about a decade there, and continues to a lesser extent today. I will say though that I find that admirable, that you this is me interjecting my own metaphor, but you basically, with your Kenner Star Wars, you sold off your memories to create new memories with your son, and I think that's beautiful. I think that's great.
Yeah, exactly. That is what I did. So yeah, it sucks not still having them, but I'm okay with it. I have no regrets.
Yeah, that's you're doing it right, man. You're doing it right. That's
well, my wife sure does think so. Whenever I sell toys, she's happy.
Yeah, that's not necessarily a question I had prepared, but it is one that I kind of thought of just now. and this is more of a modern kind of thing. Is there anything that you see that you're like, oh yeah, like you find something in your collection or whatever, and you're like, man, I need to, sell some of this stuff off, and you look at it, you're like, yeah, I could sell that, and then when it comes time to, it's kind of like Frodo with the ring, you're like, no, it's mine.
Yeah, I am definitely that way with Marvel Legends, especially with characters I'm not real familiar with, and maybe I picked them up for the BAF, or I was a completist in Marvel Legends from like 2014 to 2018. So I have a bunch of stuff that I don't really care for, but it's hard to part with it for some reason, because I don't know. Some of it's like, well, what if I need this character to complete a team, or what if I end up reading this comic book and I really like it, and then I don't have that figure, and to reacquire it's going to be a pain.
Yeah.
So
that happens to me a lot. I'm like, man, I really don't like this figure, but I'm like, but what if I need it for a photo later?
Yeah, or what if I need, parts for to make a custom or something like that,
Exactly. So let's see. We've kind of burned through quite a few of these questions here. Let's kind of go back a little bit. We were talking about kind of the evolution of playtime a little bit. Like in the way I played video, I talk about Dragon Ball Z specifically. I don't know if you ever got into DBZ or
never.
Yeah,
I know nothing about it except that the same character has a lot of different versions of hair.
That's he goes to a salon every week.
Right.
So to sum it up, I believe there's around 247 episodes of Dragon Ball Z proper, not Kai or anything like that. I think that's the correct number. 243 of those are screaming, and 4 of them are fighting. So that saved you a bunch of time.
Wow.
So yeah, it's a serialized kind of show where it leaves you on a cliffhanger, like, oh, is it gonna happen? Like you're just waiting for these two guys to fight. You're like, oh, well, maybe tomorrow. So they get you. But part of the gimmick, or part of the thing of that show, is the World Martial Arts Tournament happens 5 times, 6 times throughout the course of that show, and it's, as you might imagine, a bracketed tournament. They draw numbers, yada yada. That's basically what I did with my toys. After I got to a certain age, because up until then, I just smash them up, beat them up, no thought required. Goku beat Vegeta in this episode, so Goku beats Vegeta in playtime. It was a very literal translation from show to playtime for me. Until the video game Dragon Ball Z Budokai came out, where it kind of flipped all that and it just became a fighting game. So I would assign each character a number, and I would draw numbers out of a hat and come up with my own tournament. Was there anything in your playtime that kind of evolved as you got older, where it was, oh, these are good guy, bad guy, like this guy's a Cobra, or this guy's one of Skeletor's minions, or this guy's a Decepticon, so he's bad automatically? Did that ever change over time, where you're like, you know what, I know the source material, I know the canon, but I'm going to do what I want to do with them?
I don't think I would ever. I would come up with like very elaborate storylines. I remember that. My favorite thing to do was to have one character, and he was like a commando or a spy or something, and they would try to infiltrate the enemy base. That I remember that story. Playing that storyline was just it was a very common playtime storyline for me. Like I remember I had the Outback G.I. Joe Outback.
Oh yeah, survival or survive. Yeah. He's a good one.
Yeah, so I would have him kind of, the one lone soldier going in behind enemy lines to rescue one of his buddies, or to take out, the big bad or whatever. And so I remember that being a go-to. I remember also using 4LOM from the Kenner line. Which was actually Zuckuss, right? So he had the trench coat. And I remember using the sword toothpicks.
Oh, yeah.
And so he would be like my ninja guy, and it would be one ninja up against the enemy, So I would have like troops or soldiers and things. And I remember I had a big bin of homemade wooden blocks that my grandfather had made. And so I used those. I mean, those were my play set, because when I was a kid, I had one play set.
Mm-hmm.
from the store shelf. It was the 89 Batcave.
Okay.
So I used those wooden blocks a lot, and I would build an enemy base. Maybe there was a maze to get in, and I would have that one lone hero. That was always like a go to for me.
Mm-hmm.
Or I would take like one Batman, and I would have like the rogues gallery, and he'd have to fight each one, and to rescue Robin, or whatever, to stop him from doing evil or whatever.
Right. Yeah. That's I think that's a common trope among boys, because I did something very similar. I too had a lot of these kind of wooden blocks that were just non-colored, just wood grain blocks, and I would make cities out of them, or what have you. And that was going to be a follow-up question. Actually, was about play sets and what play sets you had or had experience with, whether it was the neighbor kid had Castle Grayskull or Eternia, or he had the Hollow Justice or things like that. Because you'd mentioned that you had the ships, which certain ships could be argued are a playset and less of a ship. But I didn't know if you had any experience about using legitimate plays. Like let's use your Batcave for example.
Mm-hmm.
Did you find that the playsets limited your imagination or became more of a hindrance than anything else?
Oh, no way, no way. I mean, I had the one playset, and I remember getting that. I don't remember why, but my mom took me and my brother to Toys R Us one time. And as a kid, I went into a Toys R Us a handful of times.
Mm-hmm.
It was it was not the norm to go into Toys R Us.
Right.
So I remember
it was your birthday, or you had some teeth pulled, or there was something in it. Like it wasn't. There was no, hey, we're just going to go to Toys R Us. You're like, okay, I'm either getting a shot today or there's something going on. Like it was a foreboding kind of experience, at least in my household.
Well, it might have been, okay, we have to go and buy you kids new school clothes or something. And then, oh, look, there's Toys R Us. Mom, can we go? Mom, can we go? Like that type of thing. For me, it was never like, like you said, like you're getting your teeth pulled, so I'll take you to Toys R Us. It was never like that. But I remember the day I got that play set. She had taken me and my brother there. My brother was kind of too old for toys, but he kind of tagged along. He was probably looking at video games or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw this play set, and it came in a really big box. And I see this thing, and I can't believe my eyes, And so I'm looking at it, and my mom said, "Do you want to get it?" I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "Okay, all right." Does it come with the Batman or the other figures? I'm like, "No." She's like, "Okay, well, pick out a figure." So I picked out the Batman with the belt, the retractable,
Mm-hmm.
Because that was on the shelf at the time. That was that was right after the '89 movie, and man, I love that movie. But so I got that, and I played with that thing hard, and the back of it was cardboard, so it did get worn quite a bit. But as far as limiting imagination, not at all, because the back of that thing could have been a dank alley that Batman's fighting crime, because there was like a door and a balcony, and the front could be the Batcave. And so, in your kid brain, you don't think, well, the Joker or the Penguin would have no clue that there's a Batcave. It's just, oh, the Joker's looking for the Batcave, and he's found the Batcave. And so I would do storylines like that, and I think it was a good thing, man. I remember using it as a piece of like a playset for Echo Base, and having Luke and a few other figures at the computer console, and the stormtroopers and Darth Vader bust into Echo Base, and they got to fight them or whatever. So no, I don't think it limited my imagination at all.
Right on. Yeah, I like to hear those sorts of things. The play sets I had growing up were by and large leftovers from my brother. So there was like, I had the I don't know how familiar you are with the Fright Zone from He-Man.
Not at all, because as a kid, I never really liked He-Man, and that's continued. I know it's weird, right?
Blaspheme.
Yeah, I know, and that's continued to today. I mean, I don't collect any Motu. I don't have anything from Masters of the Universe.
Yeah, that was another question I had. It's a good dovetail. If there were any toy lines that I don't know, your friends were really into that you just didn't collect and maybe now appreciate as an adult, or vice versa? You had them as a kid, and you're like, why did I ever like this crap?
I had them as a kid, and why did I? No, not really. Another toy line that I wasn't really into as a kid, and this will blow everyone's mind too, was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Well, we've had a great stream tonight, guys.
Yeah. I just never got into it. I wasn't into the cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
I did like the movie, and so I do collect the movie figures now.
Mm-hmm.
But I was so at that time when that first movie came out, or the cartoon was out, I was so into DC and Star Wars. I had really no room for anything else. I always had like a one-off figure from different lines. Like I did have a Captain Power, and only Captain Power from that line. I had Flash Gordon, just stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know what it was, but the Ninja Turtles and He-Man and even the Thundercats never really spoke to me. I was just never into it.
Mm-hmm.
But I am more into Transformers now as an adult than I ever was as a kid. As a kid, I only had like 3 Transformers.
Mm-hmm.
And those were hand-me-downs from that same cousin that had the Star Wars toys that I obtained from him.
Right.
I had Optimus Prime, and my cousin was the kid that kept all the boxes, and he'd put them back in the box when he wasn't playing with them. So I had Optimus Prime with the styrofoam insert and the box. I had Hound with the box, and I had the red van.
Is that that's not Ironhide, is it? The red van?
Yeah, Ironhide. I remember he didn't have a face.
Oh,
it was like just the windshield, and I thought that was stupid.
Yeah. That actually, I see a couple questions. Don't worry, chat. I haven't forgotten that you're there. I see a couple that I'm going to ask, but just speaking about Transformers, you and I are kindred spirits because how long we've been going? 40 minutes. Yeah, I can say it now. I fucking love Beast Wars.
Me too, man.
Like, I don't know why people shit all over that show for so long, but it's great.
Dude, it had a killer storyline. I loved that cartoon as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I wasn't even a kid. I was like 8th grade, 9th grade when it came out. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. In fact, that was the Optimal Optimus that they put out back. It must have been 98 or 99.
Mm-hmm.
That was like the one exception when I wasn't collecting toys. Like I saw that thing and I had to have it.
Hell yeah. That's the Optimal. That's he's not Transmetal, or no, that might be the one after that. Optimal Optimus.
No, it was the one where he he fused with the Matrix of Leadership, and
yep. Yeah, okay.
He could like transform into like a weird jet or a tank.
Yeah, he was all orange and purple and had these like huge arms and stuff. Yeah, he was a what do they call it, a 3-form or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. That was one that I actually had up until about 2016 or 2017 when I finally sold it. But then when they dropped the Power of the Primes Optimal Optimus, I bought that, and that was just like a year or two ago.
Oh yeah, that's I wasn't collecting Transformers, as people know. For me, Beast Wars hit perfect because I didn't know anything about Transformers. I had my brother's hand-me-downs that were hardly intact.
Yeah,
Beast Wars hit, and that was my Transformers. I didn't even know that that the shows were related because I knew nothing about it. But
yeah,
this War for Cybertron trilogy, Kingdom, whatever it's called, this toy line from Hasbro I'm buying up all the Beast Wars.
Well, not only am I buying the Beast Wars from that line, but I'm buying the G1 looking bots too. The ones that I remember as a kid and that I kind of thought were cool. I mean, so I have I have a lot of the War for Cybertron stuff. Not all of it, but I have a lot.
Oh yeah, I got Dinobot and Black Arachnia sitting in a box next to me waiting to get reviewed. So I'm all different shades of excited for that.
That Megatron, I mean...
Oh, yeah, the T-Rex Megatron? Yes.
Yeah, I have not held the Masterpiece in my hand.
Mm-hmm.
But just from pictures, it's like, this thing is just as good, man. This thing is awesome.
Yeah, I saw, it was a few months ago, Hasbro Pulse had put the Masterpiece Tigertron up for pre-order. And I was like, oh, I love Tigertron. Then I was like, not for $200.
Exactly. So when I first started to get into Transformers, I just wanted like a couple, like Optimus, Megatron, Bumblebee, Starscream, that type of thing.
Right.
And so I had picked up the Masterpiece Megatron, and by that time, like the MP10 had skyrocketed already, and so I picked up the Power of the Primes Optimus because it kind of worked with that Megatron scale wise. And right after Power of the Primes came War for Cybertron, and I was like, well, this is cool, man. Like, I mean, Optimus is, what they were 25 or 30 instead of the $50 for the Power of the Primes, and what, over 200 for a Masterpiece.
Right. Yeah. The price discrepancy between these is just crazy.
Yeah. So I knew, I was like, well, I can't keep buying these Masterpiece when War for Cybertron is readily available at Target and Walmart for a fraction of the price. So I went all in on the War for Cybertron stuff.
Outstanding. Yeah. Speaking of price and availability, Action Figure Expert has a question for you.
Oh, hey, what's up, Action Figure Expert?
He says, I believe it's supposed to be a quick question for Mr. Laserpants. What is your limitation on army building? Did you have a limitation, or were you unlimited? I'm assuming he means as a kid, like, were you able to obtain multiple stormtroopers for example, as a kid, I had 2 Tusken Raiders. That was my army of Tusken Raiders, and I had to beg. I had to beg for that. I went to a Big Lots with my grandma, and she's like, get whatever you want because it's Big Lots and it's cheap.
Yeah.
I saw 2 Tusken Raiders, and she's like, those are the same thing. Put one back, and I had to beg with tears in my eyes, and I needed more than one.
Yeah. So as a kid, I had one because like I said, my parents didn't have a lot of money in those days, and my only source of income was I pushed that lawnmower around the neighborhood and try to cut someone's grass when I could, and I eventually had a paper out. But no, I didn't army build at all when I was a kid. Nowadays, much different story. But as a kid, I had one of each, and I never had more. Like even stormtroopers, I had one stormtrooper, and that's it.
Yeah, that's if I was lucky. I mean, I think the Tusken Raider is the only one that I got like in the store. Beyond that, it was like if I was lucky, I'd find one at a yard sale and I'd get an extra. But
yeah,
I think you and I were very similar in that you had one, and if it broke, tough titties, it's broken.
Yeah. In fact, that reminds me of my Superpowers toys. I had one Batman from the Superpowers line, and I guess I had left it in the yard, and the older brother was told to mow the lawn.
Oh no!
And there was blue and gray plastic spread out over the backyard. So yeah, he took that out, and then I remember I had at least 3 Superpowers Supermans, not all at once, but I remember. Like my parents had got me one, and it had broke or lost. So I talked my grandma in. Like she would take me shopping sometimes on Friday if both my parents were working, and Friday was her shopping day. So if I happened to be with her on a Friday, well, we'd go to Kmart. She'd do her shopping, and she'd always take me down the toy aisle. So I think she ended up buying me at least 2 Supermans because I had either lost it or broken one or. So I always talked. I remember when she bought me the last one. She's like, "You picked Superman last time we were here. This is the last one I'm going to buy you." And that Superman lasted with me for a long time.
Yeah. Let's see. Also, don't worry, people. I'm scrolling up, reading the chat, and all that kind of stuff. But Timothy Ward has a question, and this is something that I think all of us have experienced. I actually have my firsthand example for this experience. Let me bring it up here. He says, what figure, vehicle, and or playset fooled you by its marketing or packaging and turned out to be garbage? The one that you saw on the peg or the commercial, like, oh, and then you got home, you're like, this thing sucks.
You want me to go first?
Oh, yes, please.
Yeah, I remember this distinctly. It was a 12-inch Ultraman. It was a domestic line. It didn't last long, but it was like a big 12-inch Ultraman, and the commercials made it look so cool, and I had to have it. I ended up getting it, and it was basically a shampoo bottle. Like I think the waist swiveled and the arms
Mhm.
might have swiveled at the
I
shoulder.
I
And
know
that,
exactly the one you're talking about because I had it too.
yes, yes. And you remember it came with like a little itty bitty one, or
Yeah,
it,
it was a hollow plastic and it was like held together with screws,
if that, it might have just been
sonic
like it,
welded or something.
yeah, like injection molded at the waist or something, and that's how it swiveled. But that was a huge letdown. I remember getting that thing home and like, yeah, this sucks. It was just a statue. I couldn't really play with it really
hmm
the way I wanted to, you know.
Yeah, that was yeah that's always heartbreaking. You know, it looks so great. And you because I don't know about you, but on the way home, you're looking at it and you're thinking of all the things you're gonna do as soon as you get home, and then you open it and you're just devastated
Yeah,
because
yeah,
you're like, I'm not gonna get another toy for weeks probably.
yeah. Another one that comes to mind is the G1 Optimus Prime. I remember
hmm
the first time I transformed that thing, I'm like, well, his legs don't move and his arms, you know, I mean, his arms kind of move around, but that's it. You know, once he's transformed, there's not much you could do with him.
hmm Yeah, that was. I think that's why so many of them ended up broken because they have legs, but they don't always go forward. They can only go backwards, or
Yeah.
you try to fudge it as much as you can. So this one's mine. I know this show is about you, but I keep interjecting just because I'm having so much fun. Was this guy?
Oh,
Yeah,
Apocalypse. So that is from the Toy Biz line? It's got to be,
it
right?
is. Yep,
Yeah,
it's from let's see, 1996 Toy Biz. So
man.
he came in a 2-pack with Cyclops.
Yeah, and see, so that's after my time collecting Marvel, you know, in the
hmm
'90s, because after probably '93 or '94, I don't think I bought any of them. Well, no, that's not true because I was into the X-Men line big time. But yeah, '96 would have been after I had stopped buying those.
hmm
I
Yeah,
don't think I've ever seen that before. It looks like a McDonald's toy.
it may as well be.
Yeah.
The 2-pack. So the Cyclops that came with it was a 5 POA figure. And he was like molded in one of those like extreme action poses. So his arms were curled a certain way, and if I remember correctly, his neck is like that Kickstarter Spawn. It's like molded a certain way. So if you turn his head, it just looks weird.
Yeah.
And this Cyclops is hardly 2 POA, or this Apocalypse, sorry, like because his head just like that's all you're gonna get in head movement. If
Oh man.
this arm will spin, knock into himself, but this one, that's all you got.
Oh man.
And then
I
the
would have
gimmick,
hated that.
yeah, the gimmick is that he pops apart and that he would shoot projectiles. But I was so freaking excited to get home. I opened it and I couldn't even play with it.
Yeah.
I was devastated,
Yeah,
absolutely devastated.
I think limited articulation was always what would kill it for me.
hmm Oh yeah, it's a game changer, especially when you're used to a world of GI Joe articulation. You go to a 5 POA and you're like, this is kind of boring.
Yeah, that really speaks to how much I was into Batman as a kid too, because the Kenner Dark Knight collection, those things were not great. As far as articulation, they were pretty much 5 POA.
hmm Oh yeah.
But I love Batman and I love those Tim Burton movies so much that I was all in on those toys, and they had great vehicles. I
Oh
remember I
yeah.
had the Bat ski boat and the Batmobile. I actually had the Toy Biz Batmobile.
Oh nice.
Um, I had the '89 Batwing too.
hmm
The one with it had a trigger on it, a handle and a trigger like a pistol.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah, yeah. I know the one that kind of when it fanned out as like a semicircle in the back.
no, that was a repurposed Silverhawks toy, I think.
Oh, okay.
This was the actual Batwing from the '89 movie.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm tracking now. Sorry, brain
Yeah,
fart.
yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of, I told this story. This was during Retro Blasting's Batman animated series live stream. I had the Batmobile from the animated series, but when you pulled the back of it out, it turned into the Batwing when you pulled out the back. And I was playing with that in the summertime. We had one of those like not inflatable, but one is like flimsy kiddie pools that you find at Big Lots and Walmart and the like with the thin bottom.
Yep.
And I was sitting there playing with it, and I had this kind of like little like makeshift ramp. So the whole idea is that he's supposed to like jump over it, and the Batwing was going to pop out of the back while the Batmobile sunk to the bottom, and Batman would survive and wouldn't drown. I dropped it, and it landed with the fins pointed down and punched holes into the bottom of the kiddie pool.
Oh man!
So not only did I almost break and stab my foot, I got grounded. So it is what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, Gojatron has a question, just going back to Transformers real quick. He asks if either of us are getting the Arc, and I'm taking a hard pass on the Arc personally.
I thought it was really cool. I considered it. What I really wanted from it was the Teletran one.
Mm-hmm.
But big Transformers like that, I'm not going to make the space for. So I did pass on it. I'd rather have, the HasLab Sentinel, or, I have the big Galactus from the Marvel Universe line. Mm-hmm. I have the big NECA Godzilla, the one that's like 12 inches tall.
Oh, yeah, that thing.
Yeah, so when it comes to Transformers, I pretty much get like the $30 area, the $30 range figures. Mm-hmm. That basically like 6-inch to 8-inch tall figures.
Yep.
I'm not getting any of the really big ones. I passed on Omega Supreme. Mm-hmm. I passed on the Scorponok, and I did pass on the Arc. I hope they put Teletran 1 out by itself eventually, because I would like to have that.
Yeah, we can hope. Like that's the I get it from a business point of view. Like they needed to kind of drive the sales and all that, but it's like, come on, like this is the part that people want. You're gonna hide it behind this gigantic paywall.
Yeah,
that would be so. I still get a little sick to my stomach thinking about it, but I have 2 of those Sentinels coming.
Yeah, right on.
I was gonna pull the trigger on a 3rd one, but I was like, nah, I kind of need to pay rent this month.
Yeah,
but the thing I said that they should have done, which is me, being very hypocritical, because I just said I don't like that, is instead of putting those Omega Sentinel things, they should have put Morph in there. How long have people been asking for a Morph Marvel Legend?
That's a really good point. And just talking with Bobby Valla, he's an ex-Hasbro employee, and he is another co-host on the Infinity Equation.
If you didn't back Action Force, you fucked up.
Yeah, very true. But I remember him saying that when he was at Hasbro, Morph was a consideration for the Sentinel, but it didn't pan out. They decided to go in the direction of the House of X, Powers of X storyline. So right. The Sentinel is like that style, and they included the Bastion and Sentinel Prime.
That's
female.
What it was. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, come on, they got to give us Morph here pretty soon.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I've often said that with enough imagination, any figure is more for Mystique.
True. Yeah.
But it's like, I got into an argument on Instagram with somebody. I can't remember his name. He's a wonderful customizer. I just can't remember which one it was specifically, because I follow a lot of them. And he was like, I don't know why everyone wants Morph, blah, blah. You can't use that body mold for anything. He didn't use that. No one else used that costume. I'm like, Wolverine, Forge. Yeah. It was an X-Team costume. I'm like, you just do a head swap. Like, you could pop Morph's head onto anybody that it'll fit, and ta-da, that's Morph now.
Well, I'll turn my camera on and I'll show you what I did, so I could have an animated Morph.
Here we go.
Sorry, you have to see my face.
That's all right.
Oh,
there we go.
So I took a Marvel Legends. Who was this? I think it was a Multiple Man.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it was the Multiple Man body. No, not Multiple Man. Forge. This is the Forge body.
So you swapped out the thigh.
Yeah, I swapped out the legs with the Cyclops, the Juggernaut Wave Cyclops. Mm-hmm. And I got this soft goods coat from seller GPS Lot on eBay. They sell like soft goods for figures and stuff. And then what I did was I took the head that came with the Nick Fury figure.
Oh, nice. It had
the earpiece with the glass thing over his eye. Mm-hmm. And so I cut that off, and I tried to shape the ear the best I could with, just using heat and a razor blade. It didn't turn out great, and then I colored under the eyes, so it looked,
Yeah, the crazy morph with Sauron and Geonosis and all that. Yeah, that's gorgeous.
So that's my morph stand-in until Marvel Legends hopefully gives us a a more cartoon accurate one.
Mhm. Yeah, Michael says it, and I agree. Fans do the best work.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's like if they don't give it to you got to do it yourself. Really, Morph is like the most overdue figure because we have the 90s animated series X-Men team now.
Right.
This is the glaring hole, and they're putting out 120 to 140 figures a year now.
Mm-hmm.
And they have the body,
Yeah.
use Bucky cap. That's fine. Mm-hmm. They have the jacket. They did it with the Cyclops,
Old Man Logan, even.
Yeah.
They've got, that's the thing I tell people, they have the tooling already. It's no new tooling. They have it already. They're just being lazy.
Yeah.
Like they could even just like take the Nick Fury head or even take a Punisher head and retrofit it. Like they could do all sorts of stuff, but
absolutely.
So
I mean, they gave us the AOA morph. Like who wanted that? No one asked for that.
No one. That's even in. I think it's one of my. It's either X-Man or Sunfire. One of those two videos. So for those who don't watch my normal content, you should, because I hide jokes and things a lot. And I'm going over. Marvel Legends always talk about the wave on the back of the box, and I say, I'm going through the line on who I'm not going to get, who I'm getting. I come to that morph and said hashtag not my morph, and it does a quick cut to to this Wolverine on the bed with the hand over the photo, and it's a picture of Morph running away, but it's playing "My Heart Will Go On" a shitty recorder.
That's awesome.
So not for nothing, I do put jokes in there just to vary things up. Timothy Ward has another question, which Timothy Ward's probably the most famous man on YouTube that doesn't have a channel of his own. I'm just saying, everyone knows who Timothy Ward is. He is like he's the swinging dick of the retro community. Man, much respect. He asks, what generic toy got the most usage mixed in with other more popular toys? The example, what is this? Let me pull up my camera right here. So an example would be like, I think this is the Fantasy World or something like that, kind of similar to Galaxy Warriors and He-Man. So they're like generic, but they're made to fit with other toys, or the core from Leonard for G.I. Joe. Did you have anything like that growing up that you used heavily? And if so, which ones?
Yeah, so I got two things. One was at some point, my aunt randomly brought over this box of loose action figures. And they looked like G.I. Joes, but I didn't know what they were. They had a lot of the same joints. I don't think they had the bicep swivel, but they all had square feet. Like their feet, instead of round at the front, they were squared off. So I don't know if you know what line that was from, or if anyone in the chat does. That
sounds very familiar, because I remember having a few. In hindsight, I think they were kind of fun school-esque, like someone had gotten some molds from G.I. Joe, because they were very G.I. Joe-ish, but they didn't have the swivel and the bicep. They had the straight arm from 82, and they broke like glass when I played with them.
Yes, they were very brittle, but I don't remember any of them being actual G.I. Joe molds. But there was those, and I had a bunch of them, and some of them were real like dumb looking, but they kind of moved like a G.I. Joe, so they'd get mixed in with my actual G.I. Joes and my Kenner Star Wars stuff. And then I distinctly remember being at a Safeway with my mom, and they would, like at grocery stores, they'd have chip clips sometimes of toys.
Right. Yeah.
And there was it was like a knockoff He-Man line. There was no articulation in it at all from the shoulders down.
Oh, outstanding.
It was like like the He-Man body, but it was brown. His loincloth was black. He had like a metal looking belt, and the head was a werewolf.
Oh, that's awesome. Of course you're going to pick that.
Yeah, so I got that, and that was like my go-to werewolf in my collection. So Batman would fight the werewolf, the X-Men would fight the werewolf, whatever. So yeah, that thing got a lot of playtime, even though he didn't really move. It was pretty much just a chunk of plastic with arm swivel.
Hell yeah, that's you can tell the ones that they got their hands on a generic He-Man body, but they didn't know how to take it apart. So they're like, oh, we'll just mold it like that, pop the arms and the head off, and we'll just mold it that way.
Yeah. So what was the name of the line that you said was like a He-Man knockoff?
There's Galaxy Warriors. There's several. There are
Okay.
several. The one that I held up, I think, is called like Fantasy World, or I think the company that made it's called Soma. I had to do a bunch of research on that the other night during one of my videos, and in editing, I was like, I don't think that's right. So I'm gonna have to put a disclaimer that I was wrong, because heaven forbid you be wrong on the internet these days. But
Yeah. Right.
yeah,
They'll let you know real quick.
yeah, White Vega says it was Remco American Defense.
Okay. So I just found a picture of it by searching
All right.
Galaxy Warriors Wolf, and I'm gonna share my screen.
Okay.
Check this out, man.
All right.
Click that. Share.
Yep.
There it is.
Oh, that's beautiful.
I totally forgot that he had that metal chest armor. I mean, that probably got ripped off and lost immediately when I got it, but that's the one.
That's beautiful. What is that? Oh, my Lanta.
Yeah.
What is that? Is that a buy it now price or a bid price?
That's a $40 buy it now.
Okay. When it was real small, I was like, is that $140? Jesus.
Yeah. Man, I don't remember. I mean, he has a weapon holding hand there, but I don't remember him coming with a weapon.
I'm kind of hung up on those eyes right now.
Yeah, and you know what? That's probably what mine looked like. I mean,
is he looking at me or is he looking at Silver Centurion? I can't figure it out.
Yeah. I mean, you could tell. Yeah, his legs are one molded piece from the crotch all the way down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just his head and his shoulders swiveled. That's it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Wow, crazy. I haven't seen an image of this thing in 20, 25, 30 years, maybe.
Man, yeah, that's as people may know, I heavily talk about bootleg figures on my channel. You know, I do a few videos of those every so often. Were there any, other than, you know, we've established the Galaxy Warriors, was there anything as a kid that you got that you knew was kind of a knockoff or wasn't, you know, licensed or whatever, but you either didn't care or, you know, I think of, and it's quasi-related. There's this video, I don't remember where I saw it, but it's this kid, you know, it's a home video, and he's like opening up his package, his present, Christmas, birthday, whatever it is. He opens it up, and he's like, Robin, not Batman? That's okay. And then sets it off to the side. Was there any memories like that you had as a kid where you got really excited and you open up your gift and you're like, was it? I think Michael talks about like openly crying at Chuck E. Cheese birthday party because he got Imperial Dignitary. He got something that he didn't want. Are there any memories like that where you're like, you kind of cringe looking back on it, like, oh God, I was so ungrateful, but you know, you were a kid. Kids don't know any better. Like anything like that.
Oh man, not off the top of my head. No, I don't remember ever having that experience, which is weird, right? Because I'm sure I did, but nothing comes to mind.
Yeah,
I do remember, speaking of knockoffs, and you mentioned the core, and it must have been from like the core. I remember I found it at a thrift store, probably the Goodwill. It was a G.I. Joe scaled like tank vehicle. But it was in two parts. It had like a trailer hitch and then like a trailer with like another. I think there was another cannon on the back piece too, and I know it wasn't G.I. Joe.
Okay.
So it must have been the core. But
say my immediate thought is the Mobat and the HAL laser cannon.
Mobat. Let me try to find an image of that. Maybe that was it, but no, it wasn't that.
Okay.
Because it didn't look like a traditional tank. It was.
I got you. It was something off was about it.
Yeah. It definitely, like, it didn't have treads. It had like multiple wheels, I think. And there was, you know, basically like a trailer on it with like more, I think like another cannon or something. Gotcha.
Yeah. The core was really big. Like their whole thing was they worked with G.I. Joe and they were a fraction of the price. Like
yeah,
you get a whole tray of them. No.
A lot of that old core stuff from the 90s and even you know, stuff that's 10 years old is the prices are crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's I have a couple core sitting in front of me from when I was a kid because I used to get, you could get a pack of 20 of them for $10 or whatever, and that's what my grandma would get me because in my childhood brain, just thinking about knockoffs, bootlegs, kind of rip off stuff, they were synonymous. Like there was no difference between GI Joe and the core when I was a kid. That was GI Joe was a specific. When I talked about GI Joe, it was a body style.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. Yeah, I did not care at all that it wasn't, it didn't carry the GI Joe brand name.
mm-hmm.
All I knew was, oh, this is like a cool tank,
Right.
and I'll put my GI Joe Outback in it, right next to my Cobra Viper, which was like my favorite GI Joe figure as a kid.
Oh yeah. Oh, the Viper. So Christopher Perez says he's taken off. Thanks for stopping by, man. I hope you enjoyed your time, and maybe you can catch the rest on the replay later.
Thanks,
and
Christopher.
Scuba Pete is here.
Hey, Scuba Pete. Every time I read his name in a chat, I always think of Jim Carrey singing Cuban Pete.
Oh, yeah.
But in my mind, I say Scuba Pete.
Nice. Yeah, I was thinking Scuba Steve. Damn you, Scuba Steve.
Yeah, Scuba Steve. Yeah. Scuba Pete is the real life Deuce Bigelow.
That's right.
Or so he said on Analog Toys live stream.
That's right. We have verifiable evidence that is true.
Yeah.
He says that he still has his core Zodiac. So, though I know the core, I'm not entirely familiar with who Zodiac is. I only remember a handful of names. Now, that actually leads me into a question that I had. Toy lines that you had that you didn't know the source material. Like, the core is an example. There's no cartoon, at least to my knowledge, for that. Yeah. Or, like, when I was growing up, you're around my brother's age, my older brother.
Okay.
So, like, the He-Man and that stuff, like, you guys probably would have played together on the playground, no problem.
Mm-hmm.
But so when I was growing up, there was no G.I. Joe cartoon on TV. There was no He-Man cartoon on TV. Like, the only cartoons that I saw were Batman, and then later Spider-Man and X-Men, and then Power Rangers, which isn't a cartoon, but that's like the only stuff that I knew the source material of up until the late 90s when we finally got like cable, and Cartoon Network had Toonami and all that stuff. Sure. So what was there anything that you had toys of but you didn't know the source material, and how did those integrate into playtime?
Oh man, perfect example. And you know this toy line, Captain Power.
Yes, sir.
I didn't even know the name of this figure, but I had a Captain Power. I found out years later in adulthood what it was that I had. But I loved that Captain Power figure. And they were about the same size as Joe's and Star Wars. And so he was right in there with them. And that was the only figure from the Captain Power line that I had was Captain Power. I thought it was awesome. And then also, what was that figure that I sent to you with the box of Captain Power stuff?
You're talking about this man, right? Meow.
Yes, I had that as a kid as well. Probably picked up at a swap meet. Because I don't remember ever seeing those on the shelf in package, but I did have that.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't know what it was, but I thought it was cool. Looks like he has a big electrical socket on his chest.
That's right.
And although they are, slightly bigger than G.I. Joe and Captain Power, he was right in there with them too.
Yeah, people like the Visionaries because they're grounded.
Yeah.
All right, everyone, have a great night.
Bringing the dad jokes tonight, man. I love it.
That's right. I mean, I got the bod, so I may as well have the jokes.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's for those that don't know, Ryan actually, if you follow me on Instagram, I'm 99% sure I posted the picture. He hooked me up in a great way at a toy show that he was. You were a vendor, correct?
Yes, I was. Yeah, I was selling stuff.
And through the grace of God and his own good intentions, agreed to kind of do some light hunting for me. And I don't remember the name of it because, like you, I too had Captain Power as a kid, but I had this black jet and the Captain Power figure himself. I had no idea that the two were even related to each other. But I got them. It was this weird yard sale. I don't remember where it was, but it was in my brain. It was inside of a school in the middle of summer. Like it was a long hallway. It seemed like a school in my memories, and it was people just selling stuff in this hallway. And I got that jet and that Captain Power. And the coolest thing about the jet, not knowing that they, were supposed to be used with each other or in conjunction with the videotape and all that, kind of like a light gun, was that there was a button on top that you would press and the ejection seat would come out. Like the windshield would pop off and the seat would fling forward and all that. And it, like the Batwing, it had a handle on the back so you could fly it.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, I almost felt bad about finding that stuff because the prices. I had no clue Captain Power had become so valuable.
I didn't either.
Yeah, but just to touch on what you're saying, you were in a school hallway. I remember as a kid, like a school fundraiser. It was like a flea market in the school as a school like fundraiser type thing one time. So maybe it was something like that.
It might be. I mean, that would be tracking.
Yeah.
There was one that my hometown used to do every summer at it's called City Park, which is very aptly named because it's the only park in the entire town. Because what else are you going to call it, I guess, at that point? But they called it the Whale of a Sail, and it was like this gigantic pavilion building thing. I'm to this day, I don't know what it's used for outside of Whale of a Sail. Like, I have no idea what it's actually used for, but it was this gigantic, like, 2 gymnasiums, like, stuck together length building. And you would kind of like a swap meet or, a toy show. People would just show up with their junk and they'd sell it. But the caveat was, like, nothing could be priced over whatever. Like, I think there was a cap of, like, $5 an item or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So all the time we'd go there, and that's where I'd get a lot of my toys, was yard sales, things like that. That's just a little caveat for Whale of a Sale. So the yard sale and flea market thing, at least where I live, has almost become obsolete. I mean, they still happen, but people know what stuff is worth now. And damn you, eBay!
Yeah, it's like in our eBay world. I think the days of going into a flea market or yard sale and getting a giant box of old toys for $5, it's kind of over. Like people, they're hip to it now, man.
Yeah.
Those scores are exceedingly and increasingly rare.
Yeah.
Man, especially in my area, I can't find a good flea market.
Mm-hmm.
And it sucks because I love doing that kind of stuff.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that used to be the go-to. Was you'd find a bucket, like one of those plastic buckets with the rope handles. It'd be like 10 cents a 10 cents a toy or whatever. It'd just be, oh, here's some Visionaries. Oh, and here's a Skeletor, and here's like, not anymore.
Dude, I have vivid memories of my parents taking us to a swap meet in Federal Way, Washington, back in the mid to late 80s, and buying Star Wars figures for 50 cents a piece. Boba Fett, Vader, Stormtrooper. That's where I got a lot of my Star Wars toys. Swap meet, or even I remember finding a couple of Dukes of Hazzard figures, which were like G.I. Joe style and scale. Man, I miss those days. I miss the days of going to a flea market or a swap meet and finding cool stuff for a bargain.
It reminds me, there's a joke in the retro blasting community, is like, if you want it, you better buy it before Michael makes a video about it. Because it seems like every time he makes a video, that just takes off on eBay.
Yep. I'm guilty of that. I mean, if it wasn't for YouTube, I wouldn't probably have half of what I have now.
Yeah, so Jeff Morris says that he actually grew up near Federal Way, so you might have bought his Star Wars toys.
Very possible. It was the swap meet at Midway where the drive-in theater was. I think it's a Lowe's now.
Yeah, but that's talking about eBay and the post-eBay world that we live in and all that, where prices are high on everything. I feel like there's some people know what they have and they know what it's worth, and that's fine. Like, I understand being an informed seller helps you, doesn't help the buyer, but that's just the world that we live in. The thing that kills me is the people who think they know what they have.
Yes.
Where they think just because it's old that it's worth anything.
Yeah.
And it's like,
absolutely. And I do sell at toy shows. Pre-pandemic, 2-3 times a year, and there's always that new vendor, with their box of busted GI Joes, missing rubber bands, broken thumbs, whatnot, and they want $5 to $10 each. It's like, come on, man.
Yeah.
I'll give you $20 for that box.
Right. Yeah, that's I bought a broken GI Joe. This was pre-pandemic, 2019. There was a toy show, and it was like the first one they'd ever done in the area that I was living in before here. And there's a ton of GI Joe stuff, ton of like the thing that I'm kind of happy about is that the 90s stuff hasn't quite caught on yet. Like the 90 Toy Biz, like Spider-Man and X-Men toys and all that. Like some of them are a little high, but for the most part, you can still get them for kind of an old song and dance.
Oh yeah, even carded. I still, I mean, I could. The toy shows I go to, there's still lots of vendors with $5 carded Toy Biz Marvel figures. In fact, it was just about a year or two ago that Big Bad Toy Store came upon some old new stock of Marvel Toy Biz figures from the mid 90s, and they were selling them. They were selling them by the case, yeah, and for not that much.
Dang, that went completely under my radar. Now I'm upset. But there was a vendor there who had GI Joes, and the little wooden display case with the glass. They had to unlock it and lift it up and all that. And he had a Zantara, whom, for those who don't know, Zantara is Zartan's sister, but
I thought it was his daughter.
Daughter, maybe. I don't. Either way, she has the same gimmick. She turns blue, all that stuff. But because of that, Zantara, Zartan, and the dude, I can't remember his name. He's got the orange hair and the face makeup and the blue pauldron. Doesn't matter either way. Okay. They all have the same construction. They're all screwed together, but whenever they did that, they either sonic welded or glued them together or something. Because taking the screw out of the back doesn't take them apart.
Yeah.
She was broken. She had a broken O-ring. He still wanted $10 for her.
Nah.
And he's like, you can just replace the O-ring. I'm like, nah, you can't just replace the O-ring.
Yeah.
Like, there are ways you can get them back together. There are ways. Thank you to Toy Polloi for that.
Yeah.
But it's like, why am I going to pay you when I'm going to have to do the work to fix it?
Yep. Absolutely. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. Let's see. Xandar. Thank you, White. Thank you. Xandar. That was his name.
Okay.
So Action Figure Expert has another question for you. He says, question for Mr. Laserpants. Before the days of the internet and eBay, did you fall into the hands of scalpers?
Oh, that's a good question. I remember riding my bike with a friend to this comic book shop in Burien, Washington. It was called Wonder World. And this was in the days of Power of the Force 2. So the internet was around. I think eBay was around, but it wasn't a thing yet. But I remember going there, and they had their Star Wars figures for $7 a piece, whereas your Target, your Kmart, whatever, would have them for $4.99. And I thought that was outrageous. Like, I'm not paying these prices. This $7 for a Power of the Force 2 figure. I guess that would be the closest thing to a scalper in those days. Like pre-internet, pre-eBay. But beyond that, not really. Yeah. It almost kind of wasn't a thing. I don't remember people clearing out stores like they do now, like with the GI Joe classified line. Good luck. Right.
You're gonna have to basically buy someone an island to get a Cobra Island figure.
Yeah. Yep.
Let's see. Gotatron says Big Bad still has the old Toy Biz figures in stock. They must have found a ton. I'm going to pay Big Bad a visit, even though I already have like $200 worth of stuff in my pile of loot. But
well, at least that stuff is paid for. You just got to pay the $4 shipping, right?
Right.
Oh, and sales tax if applicable.
If applicable, which yeah, pretty much everything's applicable these days. Which, I was going to make a joke, but Fuck it, I'll make it. I at this point, speaking of sales tax, all that kind of stuff where applicable, I think the state of California just gives people cancer because I'm getting real tired of seeing the sticker, the state of California. Like, are you sure it's that, not just the state? Like, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, dude, they still got them, man. I'm on Big Bad right now, and they have the Marvel Hall of Fame set of 11 figures with that first Deadpool figure in that case. $100 for 11 figures.
Now, I'm gonna look at it real quick because if it's the Hall of Fame I'm thinking of, those figures are actually stuck to those stands.
Oh, okay.
I think. Let's see, Marvel Hall of Fame.
Oh no, they don't have stands.
Nope. Okay, yeah, okay. Then I'm definitely buying this.
Yeah, these 100%. Are individually packed.
Oh yeah, these are gonna find a new. Okay, that Hall of Fame. I gotcha. Yeah, because there was an X-Men at the cart. I'll do this later. There was a like X-Men Hall of Fame thing, and it was like good guys on top and bad guys on the bottom, and it kind of like the Kenner Star Wars stand where they would rotate.
Yeah,
it was like that. And I remember buying that in my adult life, and I was like, oh man, like I'm not an opener, but I really want to open these and display it. And then I was on these forums looking at it, and they're like, "Oh yeah, those guys are like glued down." I was like, "Thick." So
yeah, I remember that. That sucked.
Yeah,
I never had those though.
That's what Dion over at WCBS would call honey dicked.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a prime example of being like, "Man, this is awesome." Getting home and then you can't even play with them.
Yeah,
that
was always a disappointment. Oh, speaking of disappointing figures. The back in the day, there was like the vinyl figures. They were like 2 to 3 inches tall, and they were.
I thought you were going to say the Kickstarter spawn.
Oh, or that. But yeah, I remember as a kid getting some of those and being really disappointed because they look cool. You open them up, and they're just they're figurines. They're just little figurines. They don't move. They they're all one piece with the stand. Yeah, those things sucked.
Yeah, that was what was it? I think it was in the Infinity Equation group on Facebook. Someone posted the question: do you get mad when someone calls your figures figurines? And I don't think I think it's one of those times where I typed out the comment and just never posted it. And I was gonna say, yeah, only if they are figurines, because that's a whole different thing.
Yeah, I mean, look, my family thinks I'm the biggest weirdo on the planet because of this hobby. And so calling them figurines, okay, I don't care. My brother, who is about 6 years older than me, he calls them my Barbies,
Hell yeah.
And that's fine. I mean, I don't care. That's fine. So yeah, no, figurines is not something that's going to trigger me.
Mm-hmm. All right. So here's a fun game that it's not like a question that you could have prepared for or anything, but so let's say pick a number between 6 and 12.
Okay, I got it.
All right. Take us back to that number, whatever number you picked. That's your age. Take us back and walk us through whether you're getting home from school or it's summer vacation. Like what did that age Ryan do that year? Like what toys were out? What was the thing that you went to the most? Walk us through your day and your play scenario that would have most likely played out.
Well, I kind of already talked about it. I picked 9.
Okay.
So that would be 1990 because I was born in 81. And I was all into the Batman line. So whenever the VHS came out, VHS took a long time to come out in those days. So it might have been, summer 1990 when we got the VHS of Batman 89. And that summer consisted of me pulling all of my Batman toys out into the rec room where the TV was, pop it in that movie, and I'd watch it 2 to 3 times a day while I played with the 89 Batman toys.
Mm-hmm.
And coming home from school, I'd come home. There was the Disney afternoon, and did they call it Kids WB?
At the WB. That sounds correct. Kids WB.
Well, it was before the WB network, but it was basically like the Warner Brothers cartoons or the Disney cartoons.
I got
Like,
you.
so Disney would have been Tailspin, Chip and Dale, Rescue Rangers.
Right. Anthropomorphic animals.
Yeah. And then same with WB, you know, would have been like Bugs Bunny, Tiny Toon Adventures. I was much more on the side of the WB stuff. Like, I thought Tailspin and Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers was like, forget about it. Even like DuckTales. The one exception being Darkwing Duck. Loved
Darkwing Duck.
Man, loved Darkwing Duck.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, so coming home from school, same thing. I'd come home, turn on the TV. It was channel 13, if I remember right. That was the cartoons that I picked, the WB stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And figures out in that same rec room, like I said, and I'm watching cartoons and playing with my toys until dinner time.
Yeah. Now that's something you mentioned that, and that actually kind of jogged my memory. Is that it seems to me that most of the people I've talked to, though, you know, presumably that we had our own bedrooms or a bedroom that we shared with a sibling or something, that despite having a bedroom, that we would pull our toys to a different room in the house and play with them there.
Yes, I would do that. It would often be the living room,
Mm-hmm.
because even though I had two sisters and a brother, I was the youngest, and I was 6 years younger than my brother, and that's a big enough gap where we weren't like ever into the same things.
Same. Yeah.
So I would often bring my toys, my figures out into the living room where maybe my dad or my mom were watching television or whatever. And I would pull them out into the living room just so I wouldn't be alone in my room.
Mm-hmm.
Because I remember, this is going to sound like a Dr. Phil therapy session, but I didn't have a lot of close friends as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to be around my parents, I guess, at the time. So I would always pull them out the living room and just kind of be where they were at while I played.
Right. That's it. Where humans are social animals by design.
Yeah.
You know, despite people wanting to be the lone and silent, strong type, it's like 2020 has determined that to be a lie.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So
2020 sucked.
Yeah. And now, just a quick segue. 2020 was terrible, and now my wallet is taking a pounding because it seems like everything I pre-ordered is coming out all at once.
Dude, January and February were rough, man.
Yeah, it was brutal.
Like every Mayfex that was supposed to come out slowly in 2020 all dropped in January and February.
Ugh.
And it got real expensive.
Yeah. But yeah, I noticed just talking about rooms and all that despite, having bedrooms and all that I too would go down into the family room, which is living room, family room, rec room. It's pretty much all synonymous. And that's predominantly where I would play.
Yeah.
Even though the toys were upstairs, in my childhood mind, it was easier to just take the ones I wanted, play downstairs, and then stop midstream and run upstairs and grab another one and then run back down. And then, Dad would come home from work, step all over and be like, "Oh, get the shit out of here."
Oh, man, have I got some stories for you. Well, it's funny that you mentioned the living room, because that carpet that I told you about,
right,
like similar to the Michael French story, that was in the living room in front of the fireplace. So that was like a go-to spot for me. And the fireplace was like a big brick mantle, which is a giant play set in and of itself.
Right.
And then you mentioned your dad, get their foot out of here. I remember my chore as a kid was to vacuum. I had to vacuum the living room, hallway, my bedroom, because they were all on the same floor.
Right.
And I remember I finished vacuuming and ran back into my room because I think I had recently gotten that Batmobile, the Toy Biz. Mm-hmm. Well, I left the vacuum in the hallway. And my dad's coming downstairs, and he takes the corner a little too fast. Bam! Jams his toe right into the vacuum, which was like in the middle of the hallway.
Oh, no.
And who left this damn vacuum in the hallway? And he picks up, he comes in my room. He's like, "Did you vacuum?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he throws it in my room. He's like, "I just stubbed my toe." That vacuum landed on that Batmobile.
Oh, no.
Dude, it like shattered it.
Yeah, because we're not talking like a lightweight Dyson. We're talking about the heavy duty, probably still made of metal vacuum, right? With the bag and everything.
I'm sure it was. I don't remember specifically, but I remember it hit that Batmobile and it was crushed. And I was so devastated. And that was the only Batmobile I ever had.
Oh no!
It wasn't like I was going to get the Kenner Dark Knight Batmobile. I mean, some things just weren't in the budget, and the fact that I had that Batmobile was a big deal. As I recall childhood trauma here on the 2 Cent Toys YouTube channel.
Hey, that's what it's all about, man.
Yeah.
What do they say? Comedy is tragedy plus time.
I look back now and it is funny, but at the time, man. I mean, because at that time, my dad was younger than I am now.
Mm-hmm.
And he was an angry dude back then. He was never a horrible person, but
right.
He threw that vacuum and he crushed that Batmobile. That's a memory that I can't get out of my head.
That's as we get older, they say, you become your parents. I think now, through time, you're like, yeah, I can get it. Like he probably, came home from work. It was a long day at work, and then he has this happen. Yeah, you see it as a kid. You're just like, I'm sorry, please don't get a divorce.
Yeah, that's exactly what it probably was. Long day at work. He worked at a steel mill.
Oh man.
Probably a long day of work. Crushed his toe. And I mean, even though I understand it, I'm glad that I don't have that short temper like he did. Like I'm way more chill than my dad. But you can't fault the guy. He had 4 kids by the time he was 26. So
yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember what made me think of that is I was I don't remember who made it. It must have been Bandai or someone, but it was around the time that the Mega Man cartoon came out. I don't know if you remember that or not.
I have no memory of a Mega Man cartoon at all.
Okay, I think it was very short lived, but it was. I could only find them at Kmart, but they had like Gutsman, Mega Man, Rush. Like there were a few figures, and I had a Mega Man, and I had set up this little battle scenario in the living room because it had 2 doors. One was a corner fed door, and one was a center fed door. For those that don't know, what that means is that there was one door in a corner on the far end of the room, and the other door that you kind of would pass through was in the middle of the wall on the opposite end. Mm-hmm. And so I played out this little scenario because on the other side of the corner fed door were the stairs that went upstairs to my room. And so it was kind of this big, long thing, and the stairs were a mountain for me and all that. And Mega Man was on his way, acting like a Mega Man level as one would, 2D, he's platforming, jumping on the sofa and jumping off, all that kind of stuff. I'd set it all up, getting ready to play. My dad walked in and stepped on Mega Man.
Oh, no.
And he went on a rip. Like, he was wearing shoes even. Like, I mean, Mega Man was durable. He didn't break or anything. But he started screaming about, I need to get all this crap out of here. And he's like, if I see any more toys on the floor, I'm going to step on each one of them, only step on the toys. And I was like, no, don't do that. So, yeah. Wolfie762 is here. Hello, Wolfie. Welcome.
Hey, Wolfie.
Scuba Pete says the Batmobile was no match for the Hoover.
None. No.
Yeah.
Little did Batman know his main villain was my dad.
Oh no. Your dad, in a very meta way, was Thomas Wayne, because Thomas Wayne is ultimately the villain for Batman because he turned him into Batman. But anyway, Timothy Ward has another question. He says, "What was the first toy that made you that you bought strictly to collect? No intention for playtime, and did you sneak into the toy section to secretly buy it?"
Okay, I already mentioned it. That toy line for me was Power of the Force 2 Star Wars. Mm-hmm. I would go covert into that Target because I didn't want anyone from school seeing me at 15 years old buying Star Wars toys. Mm-hmm. So I would walk around the long way through the store like I'm looking at other stuff, and then quickly go through the toy aisle. And if I saw what I wanted, I'd grab it and I'd kind of hold it down at the side, maybe slightly behind me, trying to hide it from everyone. Mm-hmm. And this is before self-checkout, and then the cashier would be looking at me that look where it's like, aren't you too old for this stuff? So even though I was collecting as a collector, I wasn't playing with these things. It took a long time for me to just be like, I don't care, whatever. And, now it's like, I go to Target and Walmart every week. So
yeah, who cares?
Yeah.
I actually have a couple stories about that just to kind of play off what you said. Even one happened today. When I was at 15, I don't call it puberty. I call it the age of shame because it's when you suddenly become aware of everything. And you're like, oh no.
Yeah.
And I would the toy department in our Walmart was juxtaposed from lawn and garden, but if you stood at the entry of lawn and garden, you could see down the boys' toy aisle. And so I would stand there acting like I'm looking at all the manure, like, would you look at that? Like, but I'm kind of like looking down the toy aisle, and I'd pretend like I'm waiting on somebody just to be like, oh, okay, that's what they got now. All right. And so before that, even I'm assuming your son's probably around that age where he doesn't want to be in the shopping cart anymore. I imagine.
Well, yeah, he's 11. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's almost as tall as my wife, man. The kid's growing so fast.
It's the water, man.
Yeah.
He's always getting washed and watered living in Seattle. That's the thing.
Yeah, that's it.
But I was in the 4th grade, so around 11 years old. I had gotten sick in Walmart. Like, it was like this terrible turn of events, something you'd see out of a freaking like 90s like kind of rom-com movie. So as mentioned, the lawn and garden area, there was those big metal poles that are on the inside of the store for whatever reason, like the ones that you see outside as that barrier to the doors. They had them inside, and I had run and gotten my foot stuck on the wrong side of it. It's a sequence of events I will never, even if I try to play it out in my brain, it doesn't make sense, but it happened. I had basically tripped on it, twisted my ankle, hit my shin on the pole, fallen down, and then thrown up. It was like the most pathetic thing you could think of. You're just like, how is this survival of the fittest, man? How are you alive?
Man.
So I did that. I wasn't feeling good. It hurt to stand and walk. So I got in the shopping cart and we were leaving. And as we're waiting to check out, this not gigantic, but an 11-year-old kid who's too big to be in a shopping cart. I'm sitting in a shopping cart. And this kid I know from school in my class gets in line behind us. And
oh no.
It's not a kid that I knew him, but we weren't like friendly or friends or anything. It's just we were in class together. And I'm sitting in the shopping cart, like vomit on my shirt, holding my shin because I had my pants rolled up, and holding a pack of Pokemon cards like, hey, Ryan.
Oh, you are a bit younger than me because Pokemon, yeah, I was definitely in high school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was born in 89.
Okay, yeah. So when did the Pokemon craze start? Like 98, 99?
99 is what I remember.
Yeah, okay.
So, yeah,
that makes sense.
It was super embarrassing.
Oh,
and then
man.
I got to school the next day and everyone's like, ha, you're gonna throw up again. Ha, ha, ha. And I'm like, I just want to die.
Yeah. So mine isn't quite that bad. Well, it's bad in a different way. I remember I had a friend who was about a year older. I was 16. He was 17. He had his license and he had his first car. Mm-hmm. So we go to the mall. And at that time, there was still KB Toy Store.
Mm-hmm.
So we go into KB Toy Store, and I found some toys that I wanted, so I grabbed them. And I go up to the register, and I'm super embarrassed. 16 years old buying these action figures. Because everyone's going to get the wrong idea. They're going to think you're a weirdo. Right. You need to grow up, whatever. Mm-hmm. So the cashier is ringing them up, and I'm trying to play it off like I'm buying gifts. And so I said, "Do you rap?" And she looked at me, and she's black.
Oh, man.
She looked at me. She didn't understand what I was asking. And she's like, "No, I do not rap." And I was like, "Oh," I was like, no. I mean, do you like rap, like gift wrap? And she was like, "Oh, no." I was so embarrassed, man. I was like, get me out of here.
Longest checkout ever.
Oh, it was so awkward. And my friend standing there, because he thought I was weird anyway, but I didn't care, because I was buying toys. And it was one of the most awkward moments of my life. I felt horrible. Mm-hmm. So I threw him in the KB bag, and I kind of wrapped the bag around the toys and stuck it on my arm so the KB logo wouldn't show. Mm-hmm. And I got out of there so fast.
Yeah. That's Wolfie762 that says that he bought the Phantom Menace battle droid covert as all hell. He was in high school.
Yep.
So, yeah, that's speaking of KB Toys. Me and my best friend at the time, we were 13, 14 years old. And so around the time that you start feeling the shame. And so we go into KB Toys, even though we're both heavy into like I played with toys longer than I probably should have. Like legit sat down and played with them. And we were in KB Toys, and I think this must have been right at the cusp of when they started to go out of business, because they had these like metal kind of wire standy things that were all in a section. They put with stuffed animals and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the bottom ones was empty. And so he and I kind of like shimmied under there because we had gone to the mall as, the cool place to hang out when you're a teenager.
Yep.
And so we're hanging out, we're sitting down there, coking and joking, whatever. And an employee goes like, "Hey, you can't be under there." And we're like, "Haha, we just got yelled at. We're so edgy and cool." And so we're walking around, and someone had opened up the Hulk cans. How they used to have toys on display. This is around the time the Eric Bana Hulk movie came out.
Oh yeah.
And so we each put on a Hulk can, and we're sitting there beating the crap out of each other. And they're like, "Hey, you need to get out of here." And so, of course, we didn't. We're like, "Oh, we got yelled at again." Ah. And so we continue doing what we're doing until mall security shows up, and then we're detained by mall security, and our parents have to come get us.
Oh, my goodness.
And so we do the walk of shame, because the mall security, so there's like the movie theater inside the food court. The mall security's off to the right. And so our parents come and get us. We're walking out with mall security behind us and our parents in front of us. And as luck would have it, like all the kids from our school are sitting there in the food court waiting for whatever movie to start. And they're all looking at us. I'm like, "Oh, this would be really cool if my parents weren't here."
Yeah. Well, you say, "Yeah, they caught me smoking weed in the bathroom, man."
Right.
Oh.
Let's see. Let's look for some more questions here. Okay. So Action Figure Expert again says, "What did you guys like better back in the day?" I'm not sure what that word's supposed to be. Something Toy News and Review Magazine, or Tomart's Action Figure Digest, or Toy Fair.
The only one that I remember is Toy Fair. Man, I love Toy Fair.
Mm-hmm.
I remember going to Walden's Books and looking through the magazines, looking for Toy Fair, or, at Safeway in the magazine section. I love Toy Fair.
Mm-hmm.
Toy Fair was awesome, man. That's kind of where I got the idea of, taking pictures of toys. That's kind of like the beginning of toy photography as a hobby, and
Mm-hmm.
I think it's how Robot Chicken got started. Was the old Toy Fair magazines, because they would have like comic strips basically, but of action figure photography.
Mm-hmm. No, I remember that. There'd always be like little, like basically an ACBA photo, and it'd have like little comic bubbles of them talking.
Yeah. Oh man, I wish I still had all my old Toys Fair magazines.
Mm-hmm.
They're long gone now.
Yeah, I had a couple, and it was probably back issues, because I know I didn't buy them in a store. I just had them. And the thing that drove me nuts as a kid is like I'd see all these cool toys, but I would never see them in stores. Never, ever.
Yeah, there was always a few figures from each line that I wanted that I would just never find. Like from the old X-Men Toy Biz line, they had the first Apocalypse, which like had like the legs that would extend.
Mm-hmm.
And the arms that would extend, and that thing sucked. But then there was a picture on the back of the card, one of the cards, and it had a really cool looking Apocalypse. I never saw that thing at store.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted that so bad.
Yeah, that was I don't even remember. The ones I had were all gimmicky. He shot like a missile out of his chest or something, but that was the one I had as a kid. He had these gigantic bat wings that came over the front of him, but I snapped them off because kids. I'm like, these things get in the way, so I just broke them off, and I was like, this figure's so much better.
Yeah, I remember I got it wasn't Banshee. Who was the guy that screamed?
Yeah, it was Banshee.
Yeah, well, maybe he didn't scream. He had like long hair. He was on X-Force. Anyways, he had a wind-up feature on his back, and he would vibrate.
Oh no!
You remember that?
Yeah.
Who was that? Richter. It was Richter.
Yeah. Richter with the black shirt and all that.
Yeah. Richter. And man, talk about stupid action features.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, this guy vibrates. What is this?
Yeah. Action figure that was kind of following up with a figure you got home that just really sucked. What was your opinion on like action features like that? Like anything that I have the Toy Biz Hydro Man here that I freaking love, which I'm 100% convinced that the Hydro Man Marvel Legend was based off of this one because the pants are the same when his pants are actually green in the cartoon in the comic book, but his arms are the molded water, and his whole gimmick was that he would shoot water. Like he'd put that little plunger in his back and he'd shoot water out of his fist.
Yeah.
So I didn't know what your opinion was on something like that, where it's like, okay,
So never been a fan, and that's probably the one thing about superpowers where, like, it basically made Kenner Star Wars my favorite line. I mean, I love superpowers, but they all had stupid action features. And to me, that just... I never played with action features as a kid. Like, which one... Like, Aquaman would kick his legs like he was swimming. I had no use for that. And Superman would do the punching thing. I had... Like, he squeezed his legs, I think, and he would punch.
Yeah. He would he'd do the monkey, basically, because his arms would alternate.
Yeah. I mean, I love the character so much, and I love the Super Friends cartoon and the Christopher Reeves movies so much that I still love the figures. I still play with them. But the action features have never done anything for me. In fact, I think that's one of the main things that kind of hurt the Spider-Man Classics line, was that they started putting in action features, like on the Spider Hulk and some of their, their Hulk classic. Hulk's classics had action features, but they were super articulated. I mean, they were basically a collector line. And I remember thinking, why are they putting these stupid gimmicky things in them? I never cared for them. I think the one exception would be the '89 Toy Biz Batman, because that retractable belt was cool.
Right. And it wasn't something that hindered his movement or, I don't think I have any good examples, but that, like if they had a punch, like you'd push a button and they'd punch forward or something, like you had to force their arm back to hear that click, click, click until it got stuck in a pose you wanted.
Right.
At least with the combat belt Batman, it was like, or not combat belt, but the belt, once it was in his body, it was there. Like it didn't just, unless you broke it and it was hanging out.
Yeah. Well, I remember holding the pulling the belt piece out, putting it at the top of the mantle, and then letting Batman, slide up to the top. Right.
Right.
I mean, that was, I think, the one exception. That's a cool action feature, but you push a button on their back and they kick, or there's a spring-loaded kick or a punch, or I never cared for that type of thing.
Right, like the spring-loaded waist in a He-Man.
Yeah. Oh, did they have those on He-Man figures?
Yeah. Okay. The majority of them had a spring in their waist, so they would do like a punch or something, or like Roboto, if you twisted him, the gears would turn, or Mechanex's neck would extend, and they were action feature figures.
Yeah, the most experience I mean, that neighbor kid I told you about with the little miniature cannon, he had a lot of He-Man action figures, and I kind of played with him when I was over at his house, but he had everything. But I think the most experience I have with anything to do with Masters of the Universe is this Origins line, because I'm buying a lot of them, and I'm sending them all in the mail to Bobby Vella, because he's into them. I have no desire for him at all. I have no attachment to Motu, but he's so busy building his company that he can't get out to the stores and find these things. So,
and I can confirm, I'm not to give myself away, but the region is very dry with that. So a lot of
where you guys live? Yeah.
A lot of mine are coming off Amazon.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, that's like that. I think that's the make or break for some toy lines. Like some of them, like you said, the belt on Batman's a good one. I think, isn't there a Spider-Man that had a similar gimmick, but that his arms like locked straight because of it?
Probably. I remember the first Toy Biz Spider-Man that came out in that first wave in like 89 or 90. It must have been 90. He had suction cups on his hands, and I thought that was
Yep.
stupid. I those things got ripped off immediately. Same as the Nightcrawler.
Yep. The one he had one on his left knee and one on his right elbow, I think.
Yeah, those got ripped off immediately.
Let's see. I think you've answered this question. Wolfie's asked, did you ever rebuy a toy that broke or used that sweet allowance money to replace? You'd mentioned your Superman.
Yeah, Superpower Superman. I think none of the Superpower Supermans made it through my childhood. The one that ended up being in that box was the Toy Biz, the one that came with the kryptonite ring. That I mentioned, that box of figures I got from my mom's a few years ago. That it was the toy. So yeah, none of the Superpowers ones lasted. I think I had 2 or 3 of those, and then eventually those disappeared, and Toy Biz got the license, and I had the Toy Biz Superman for the remainder of my childhood. But other than that, I never did get another Batman from Superpowers after my brother hit it with a lawnmower. Yeah, so there wasn't a lot of rebuying figures besides those couple.
Now, I have 2. Well, I'll ask Timothy Ward's question here, but I have 2 final questions because we're going to wrap it up here in about 5 minutes.
Okay.
He says, are there any recommendations from producers for custom head sculpts, someone who takes a photo and does some sort of 3D printing or something?
There is a website where you can do that, and I don't recall the name of it.
Okay.
But I think Smash Labs Creations will make a custom head sculpt. It's not cheap.
Yeah.
Like if you wanted your own head put on an action figure, that is not cheap, man. Hundreds.
Yeah, because I know you can find Obi-Wan head sculpts on eBay or whatever. Like there's some that I find on eBay that are unpainted that are for like $20, and for painted it's like $80.
Yeah. So. Okay. So if you just want a better head sculpt for an existing figure, check out what's that website I go to? I get a ton of head sculpts from them. Well, one is Old Boy CTTS. Just search Old Boy CTTS on Instagram, and you can follow the link there to his online store. All of his stuff is pre-order, and he puts up 1 or 2 at a time, and it's of specific figures. I think right now he has a Deathstroke unmasked head and an old dad bod Boba Fett head.
Hell yeah!
And then another one is Casting Cave. Google Casting Cave. He does painted.
Not couch cave.
Don't Google Well, you can Google Casting Couch if you want, but Casting Cave. Google that. Go to their site, and they have painted and unpainted heads that they sell. They make about maybe 10 at a time of the painted, and then I think just the unpainted casts are pretty regularly in stock.
And Retroblasting has a question. Welcome, Retroblasting. Welcome. He asks, is there any scenario in which you would fully abandon buying NECA products? Also, would you consider a bribe to do so?
I think I'm almost completely out. Like the last one I bought was that Doc Brown. But man, I'm such a mark for Back to the Future, and I've been wanting toys from Back to the Future for so long, and I realize I'm supporting a kind of a scummy company that, I mean, they know their QC issues. They joke about it online, But yeah, I do go out of my way to avoid buying. Like I stopped collecting the Ninja Turtle stuff, the Predator stuff, and the Alien stuff. I was collecting those for a long time, but after like my third run-in with their stupid Twitter customer service, I was like, this is it, man. I'm done.
Yep. It's after they do the April O'Neil, I will be done with my movie turtles.
I kind of want that April O'Neil because I kept my movie turtle stuff, but I got rid of all my cartoon stuff.
Same. I couldn't keep up with both.
Yeah.
So,
I might get April, but it's gonna hurt.
That's. I thought I was done. I was like, okay, I got my Casey Jones. I'm done. And they're like, oh yeah, we're actually gonna do this April thing. I'm like,
Yeah.
The only thing they could do is if they did the TMNT 3 and the samurai armor. I might fall for that, but I'm going to hold strong. April O'Neil's it. I'm done. They almost got me with Goliath. They almost got me with Goliath from Gargoyles, but I know better. Those wings are going to shatter like glass, so I'll wait for someone else.
Luckily, Gargoyles was another thing that I never cared for. I just never really got into it.
Mm-hmm.
For me with the movie line, April. Beyond that, I have no interest in anything from TMNT 3. But if they did a Vanilla Ice from TMNT 2, I would cave and I would get that, as stupid as it is. I mean, you got to remember, Vanilla Ice was popular when I was 10.
Mm-hmm.
So I was a total mark for Vanilla Ice music at the time. I probably couldn't listen to it now. I haven't heard it in forever. But I just love TMNT2 and that whole scene with Vanilla Ice dancing in that was so awesome as a kid, man.
Go ninja,
as corny and
go.
Yeah, as corny as it is now, I would probably have to buy a Vanilla Ice figure.
Yeah, that's I think that's it for NECA anyway. But yeah, so I only have 2 more questions because we're coming up on the 2-hour mark. One very quick question: how elaborate were your play scenarios? Like, did you ever start in the backyard and work your way through the house, or was it kind of you isolated yourself? Like you mentioned that the rug in front of the mantle was like your go-to place. Was it kind of isolated to there? Or did you like do these expansive, like through the house kind of play scenarios? Or
I would never go from room to room while playing with action figures, but I would go through phases. Like I would be in that atrium that I mentioned earlier, playing in the dirt with them, or I would be in front of that fireplace with the rug, the crumpled up rug, and the I would go through phases where that's all I would do for weeks on end.
Gotcha.
Like that's what I was playing with. That's where I was. But yeah, there was even a time where when my parents bought a house in 1988, there was a sandbox in the backyard, a wooden sandbox built in. And so I put the Star Wars AT-AT in that thing. And then eventually that thing just became like a neighborhood litter box. And my parents tore it out because it was just gross.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So, but yeah, no, I would never really move room to room, but I would have my areas where I would be focused on for an extended period of time.
I got you. That's we called those landmines when I was a kid.
Yeah, gross, man.
You go to the city park and you're like, oh man, this is a giant sandbox and it's full of turds.
I'm sure when they dug that thing out, they dug out many a Kenner accessory and it got tossed because
absolutely.
Yeah.
If you were a kid and you were into Star Wars and there was a sandbox, you had Tatooine.
Oh man, I remember burying a few Kenner figures, playing on the beach at a lake. We were on vacation one year and I was playing in the sand with them. And some of them got buried and I never found them. And it was like a tragedy, man. One of them was the Kenner Boba Fett.
Oh man.
Yeah. I think that was when I reacquired 2, probably out of swap meet, because I still had that when I sold my collection 5-6 years ago.
It's always your favorite one that goes missing every time.
Yep.
There was I think I've told the story before. Speaking about favorites, I had a big boa from G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
Very, just a weird looking dude. But on family road trips, before the days of smartphones and Game Boys only had to work in daylight. There we had a panel van, like like a Woody van, so you had to crank open that back window, which didn't do anything but let air out.
Yep.
And I didn't know it was open, and I had this like little pillow thing that I brought with me, and I was playing with him, playing, and he got kicked off the pillow, and he fell between the pillow and went out the window, and I saw him go boom, and just shattered to pieces on the highway.
No. Oh, that sucks.
I remember calm as a cucumber. I was like, Dad, can we turn around? I dropped my G.I. Joe.
Oh, my dad would not have turned around.
Oh no, he was like, no, we got not realizing, of course, we're going like 80 miles an hour probably, and I'm like, he's like, no.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, hey, one more thing. I just want to address Retro Blasting's comment again. He said, also, would you consider a bribe to do so? Well, Michael, how much you got? Because yes, I would.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's all.
All right. Let's see if there's anything else. Here we go. Wolfie says, "You guys heard, right? NECA rebranded NECA. Now edible, clever articulations."
Of non-durable goods.
That's right.
Yep.
So, my last question here to kind of round everything out. You have a son who's around 11 years old.
Yes.
And I assume, you engage in playtime with him and all that, or
Absolutely. Yeah.
Do you ever find yourself trying to relive like the play scenarios that you had as a kid? Like, hey, why don't we do this? Or do you just sit there in kind of amazement that, he comes up with his own stories, or how similar are the stories he comes up with to what you did as a kid?
I let him guide the stories.
Mm-hmm.
And because he's pretty much raised by the MCU,
Mm-hmm.
everything kind of revolves around those types of storytelling.
Gotcha.
So there's always the main bad guy with his device that will end everything,
Mm-hmm.
So like, for instance, he's really into Toy Story right now. Like he goes through phases. So it was Lego. Right now it's Toy Story. It's Ben 10. And he'll come back around and stuff, but right now it's Toy Story. And so Emperor Zurg in his playtime is basically Thanos.
Okay.
So when I do play with him, he directs the story, and I'm just kind of I'll play like the sidekick.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but it's fun, man. I mean, it definitely reminds me of myself when I was his age.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember you had mentioned that he's like, Dad, I think I want to army build the aliens.
Yeah, and we did. Our anniversary is actually this weekend, but we always include him, because we exchange gifts and we always include him. So this year he got a Woody to go with his Buzz and Emperor Zurg, and he got the 3-packs of the little aliens. I got him 3-packs, so he has 9 aliens. Yeah, but I mean they were pretty inexpensive, so he was thrilled. So absolutely. Yeah, that's he has army built the little green aliens.
Good for you, man.
Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you this, man. By most, especially compared to my childhood, he has a lot. He's definitely, quote, spoiled. But the way I justify it is anything to pull him away from a screen.
Right.
Use your imagination. Use your brain. Don't just zone out to a screen. So I totally encourage, toys, Lego. Like I said, anything that doesn't involve a screen.
Right. It develops that creative problem solving.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, that about sums everything up that I had. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about? Any kind of burning memories, like some fondest memories, or anything that I feel like I've left out?
Well, I was really into Lego, but no, I think we pretty much covered everything. That was a good discussion, man.
Yeah, absolutely. It went amazing, and I thank you so much for being the first one to come on. I do hope to bring more people on as the show develops and gets legs and all that. So I thank you so much for being a part of the very first one.
Oh, I appreciate you inviting me. This anytime. This was a lot of fun.
Hell yeah. Well, everyone, this is Laserpants81. Tell the good people once more where they may find you.
So I'm Laserpants81 on Instagram because Laserpants was already taken, believe it or not. And you can find me Friday nights at 5 p.m. Pacific time, 8 p.m. Eastern time on the Infinity Equation podcast. We're live on YouTube.
Hell yeah. That's a great show. I tune in every Friday when I can. Even when I'm at work. Don't tell the people I work with. Even when I'm at work, I can't always be in the chat, but I will listen to it. So that's I used to follow the Shartimus Primes and the Whooshes and all. Nothing against those people and what they do, but I get my toy news from Infinity Equation. No one knows this, but I'll take this time to say thank you to Ryan, because the deluxe version of Cal Kestis from Fallen Order had gone under my radar, and once I saw it on your show, I was like, pre-order 3 of them right now. I didn't even know it was a thing.
Yeah. Well, you're welcome, and also I'm sorry.
Hey, no one's making me do it, but I love. No,
I know, but I mean, I know how it is. Yeah. Bright new shiny thing, must have it. Yeah,
that's right. Which they're emailing like, how do you like this product? I'm like, I don't know. It doesn't come out till June. Quit asking me.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think everyone, if it's my normal sign off, if you guys really like what you saw today, I really appreciate that you liked it. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. It helps us out a lot. Subscribe to the Infinity Equation. They are so close to 1,000 subscribers. Like, I would say by the end of June, at the latest, you guys will hit that mark by the end of June. It really, liking, subscribing, commenting, sharing the video, it costs people nothing to do, and it really helps out content creators. If you like what they're doing and want to show your support, that's the easiest way to do it. So, thank you all so much for tuning in tonight and being in the chat. I didn't have to ban anyone, which was incredible. It was awesome. Thank you so much for behaving. Laserpants, again, thank you for showing up. I've known Ryan for over 2.5 years now? Something like that when we met. It was like January 2019, I want to say.
Was that when we did the...
Yeah, we did a toy stream on WCBS. I think it was January 2019 or maybe February. So it's been a while.
Yeah, but I think that's right. That sounds about right.
So it's always a fun time to stream with your friends because it's not even like work. What do they say? It's like if you're having fun, it's not even work. So I thank you all for stopping by tonight. Have a great night. Enjoy the rest of your week. If we don't see you, tune into the Infinity Equation on Friday. You won't regret it. Have a good one, everyone.
Later.